Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. My name is Jody from Method Grids. I'm joined today by Dimo Dimov, who's Professor of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the University of Bath. And we're going to do a little Q&A with Dimo to start with, to see how he's using Method Grid at the moment. And then when we've done that, I'll do a demonstration of some of the key features of Method Grid that Dimo's currently using. And I'll focus in on the labeling of elements within grids, so you can see how that works. And then finally, we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So to that end, if you do have any questions, you should see on the right-hand side of the screen, you should have a little white box with a chat and questions. So as we're going through, if you think of any questions on any part of it, just type them in that questions box and it will come up, and we'll go through. Myself and Dimo will answer them all at the end. So please do ask any questions if you've got any. So first stage, we'll do a little interview with Dimo here. Welcome, Dimo. Thanks for taking part.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Great to be here. Good afternoon, everyone.
So first question, if you probably helpful, Dimo, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you and your team are doing at Bath University.
So I'm a professor here at the University of Bath. Entrepreneurship and innovation is my area. So our team, we do traditional things. In addition to research, we teach, we deliver entrepreneurship and innovation courses across our curriculum in different programs. We traditionally, we're a campus-based university. We traditionally teach on campus. And the opportunity has arisen to begin delivering programs online. And this is the context in which we're going to be talking about Method Grid. So we're launching our first online master's degree in entrepreneurship, innovation, and management at the end of April.
Okay, and this is where sort of Method Grid slots in here. And it's sort of, if you could tell us a little bit how you've been using Method Grid to sort of help plan and deliver these online courses.
Okay, it seems, I mean, the transition from face-to-face campus-based lectures or teaching, if you wish, to online has been more complicated than it might seem. In the classroom, you go into the classroom ready to answer questions from students, so you always kind of do things on the go as challenges or issues arise. You're ready to handle these, so you don't have to have everything pre-prepared. In the online space, you have to realize, particularly with asynchronous delivery, that this is a context where you're developing material, and the students are going through that in their own time, on their own, and they're not necessarily together with everybody. So you have to make sure that works on a standalone basis. And so that has forced us to think about all these things that we take for granted, all these things that we know, but we never make explicit. And this is where Method Grid has been extremely helpful in trying to lay this on the table, if you wish, and begin to start up planning and alignment around that.
Okay, that's great. So how about if I dive in to the grid itself now, so hopefully everyone can see my screen. So here is Method Grid, and here is Dimo's grid in here, the fundamentals of entrepreneurship and online course. Lots of stuff in here. So maybe, Dimo, if you could give us a sort of brief overview of this grid.
Okay, sure. So in delivering and working on this grid, what has been very helpful is, we've been working with Wiley, the traditionally a publishing company, but now they've gone into the online education space to provide the platform for online delivery. And it's been a great pleasure to work with Wiley and with their learning designers who have helped us kind of think our way through the design of the course. And I quickly realized that their way of approaching the online environment kind of aligns with my familiarity with the basic structure of Method Grid, which is going themes, going down. So these are different aspects, different things we have to think about, and then going across the stages, or things that we have to deliver either in sequence, or in this case, they refer to qualitatively different parts of the learning experience. So in using the grid, the themes for us have basically become the topics or the lessons, if you wish. So in the online space, each course is divided into weeks, so we have to think about the topics for each week. So you can, if you scroll down, you can see the topics for the different weeks. And then once we zoom in on the week, so if we scroll at the very top, that's the, what is entrepreneurship? This is to kick things off. Then going across the different stages allows us to break down that week into chunks. And so the first step for us is to set learning objectives for the week. So this, if you wish, the big lesson for the week to give students an understanding what entrepreneurship is. But this needs to be broken down to 3 things we would like them to take away from that week. So that would be, these are 3 objectives, if you wish. The first one is, for instance, to get a sense of what entrepreneurship is. The second one is to get a sense of what opportunities are as a major aspect of entrepreneurship. And the third part is to get a feel for why entrepreneurship is important and the impact that it has around us. So these are the learning objectives. And then moving across, we're getting into a set of learning activities. So if you see acquire, practice, reflect, discuss, investigate, and produce. So these basically reflect, represent the different ways, the different activities the students can engage with to learn. So these are the different ways that we learn. So acquire is about reading or watching videos or other things. Practice is the use of illustrative examples or the ability to apply concepts to see how they use in practice. Then reflect is posing questions and enabling them to think about it in their own context or in the context of their organization. Discuss is when they get engaged with others, in this case their peers in the course, to discuss questions. And this has to do with peer learning. Investigate is when they have to do a piece of independent work on their own to extend the concept or to see how it actually applies in new settings. And produce is their ability to produce an original piece of work. And this is obviously that feeds into the way we ultimately assess the course. So it's been very, very helpful with teams running vertically to think about these 6 learning activities running across. And the other important principle of design here is that we should not be learning by using predominantly 1 or 2 activities. So we need to be mixing and using all 6 and preferably in a way where they're well mixed and balanced. So this allows us, the method grid allows us a very visual way of making sure that actually all the activities are captured throughout the week. This is to ensure the students are engaged and they don't necessarily drop off the course. And this is where the color coding has become very, very useful by seeing the different activities in different colors and matching the different activities to the learning objectives. This is using the linking function within method grid. It gives us a very good visual way to represent the design of the course.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's really interesting how you've used the labels here. And perhaps we should talk a little bit about how you've used templating as well, because you've kind of got the structure of your elements here. And if anyone's wondering, these link off to other elements within the grid. If I click on it, it should open up. No. My internet is taken over with the bandwidth for the webinar.
So linking. So in this case, this is an example. You've just opened up one of the learning objectives, and it allows you to link that objective to specific activities to be done that week. So in this case, this is a reading, a practice, which is to analyze an entrepreneurial pitch, and produce, which is to propose an entrepreneurial idea. And so when you close that, these 3 would appear with the colors So on the learning objectives tab, they would appear with the 3 colors of the learning activities. So we see a green, a red, and a yellow, and that represents acquire or read, practice, and then produce.
Okay, that's great. And then within these elements, you've got a structure, which I think you're using in our templating here. So if I go in there and have a look at those as well, you could talk us through how you're using the element templates.
Yes.
So there's your various templates there.
So if we go to learning objectives, I think it's the learning objectives at the very.
On there. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one example. You know, it's a guidance for, you know, the brief description of the objectives. On the right hand side, we have a hierarchy of learning outcomes, so the kind of a suggestion of different words to be used. And this is the element for links to activities. If you open another one, so let's say the reading, where is the reading? Acquire. So let's say the acquire template. If you open that one, so again, it gives you a description, gives you the opportunity to link to media. So particularly if this is about displaying videos or podcasts, allow to link here to articles or books. So you can list these as the resources. And on the right-hand side, there are examples of all the different things that can go under the acquire. So there could be text, it could be an online article, a video, a mini lecture, a case study, podcast, charts, all kinds of things.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Dimo. Thanks for talking us through that grid. I'll sort of take over now and dive into our demonstration MethodGrid account, and I'll show you sort of how easy it is to set up this kind of course plan in MethodGrid. So let me just switch over to our demo account here. So say for instance, you can sort out your various grids into folders down here on the left. So maybe you have a training folder, and we ourselves actually plan our MethodGrid training for our accounts in here. So here's an example of us using it in a very similar way. We have modules. And these are weekly here. We sort of have the weekly ones going across the top. And then we have the elements that we talk through there. But I'll quickly show you how sort of quickly you can actually start building a new grid. So if I go into my training courses grid, I'll create a new grid here. So perhaps I'm doing, for want of a bit of an example, I'll do a digital marketing course plan. And maybe I've got a number of themes in the same way that you saw in Dimo's grid there. And I can put these down here. So perhaps I've got my first theme of this course is digital marketing fundamentals. And perhaps I've got marketing innovation and so on. I can keep this, building this straight down here. And then my stages, I mean, these can be anything, but quite often there'll be time-based stages or steps in a process type stages. And I can add these in there pretty easily. So perhaps in this simple example, I'll just get rid of that bottom one. We'll just do it as weeks. So maybe this is week 1 in my course. And this is week 2, week 3, and so on. You get the idea. I can go along. I can grab and reorder these if I want to. And then, of course, the main areas, and we call them elements, is the content within your grid. It's very simple to add an element. You just click where you want it, and it'll appear in this crossover between the stage and the theme. And I add an element here. So perhaps this is my week 1, and it's the introduction. Okay, and you see you get a blank element area, but I can populate this with any content I want. I just click on here, and these are all the different content areas we've got. So you can just have a plain text area where you can type in file upload, so you can upload and host documents on MethodGrid. An expert area is you can link the element to members of your team who are on MethodGrid. Images, you can have an image embedded in here. Videos, same thing. You can have a video embedded in here from YouTube or Vimeo or somewhere like that. Element links, these are those internal links that you saw in Dimo's grid, the little blue blocks. We have a web link area, so you can link off to other websites. Cloud dot link, so this would be if you had documents in Google Drive or something like that. And then one of our main areas is a checklist area. You can have a a list of checklist items that you want someone to complete within this element. So perhaps if I start this off, probably most would have an element area. This would be, maybe we have an overview, and might write the overview in here. Okay, and again, you just keep populating this, and you might want an image area below. I can reorder these by clicking and dragging them, moving them around, whichever way I want to go. And I can upload an image and it would appear in there. And then one of our main areas is the checklist area. And this works in tandem with the labeling system. So perhaps you have a to-do list in here or something like that. And then mark off as done. And then I can add in items here. Oh, here we go. So research, and then done. 2 checklist items, and there you go. I've built out a really simple element. As soon as I drop out of this edit mode here, this is exactly as one of your users would see it. So there we go. I've got an element in my digital marketing course plan, and anyone can open this up and see it. So another great shortcut is, once you've got a template like this and you're happy with that layout, when you come into edit mode here, you can save it as a template. So maybe this is my digital marketing template. I can save that now, and that's now in my template library. So when I come to add another element in week 1, let's say, for instance, is a module on strategy. Once I've got that title in, I can now load it from my digital marketing template. There we go. That's now come in, and I could overwrite this and write the text in that's valid for this particular module. You can see how quickly I've got a template up and running. And there we go. So let's fill this in. Maybe we have, in week 2, we come on to digital marketing innovation. Go in here and I can load it up from my template again. And then I would write everything in here. So I have another module called innovations. And again, I can load up my template, or I can start again from scratch. And there we go. And then I would put in my content. So you can see how quickly I can start to build this out. Now, one of the things you'll have noticed in there that I've put 2 checklists in each of these elements. So over here, I can see that I've got 4 elements. The 4 elements have all got checklists in, and they've got 2 in each, so there's 8 in total. And as they get ticked off, this will start to populate, and you can see how many have been done. And we also have a labeling system, and this is unique to each grid. So perhaps you want to have green denote that something is complete. Perhaps red is something is mandatory. Possibly you might have green as in progress, orange as in progress, or something like that. But this is completely flexible and down to you. There we go. I've got a really simple labeling system. So all I would do now is, if I wanted to say, okay, well, the introduction is a mandatory element, I can come in here and I've got my labels, and I can tick that off there. And the full label and the dot label, full, if I come out, that's now red. And if you didn't want to make the whole thing go red, you can just have a dot label like this, which you saw in Dimo's grid. And I can just have dots like that. Okay, and then I could say, okay, well, this one's in progress. Perhaps I want that full color. There we go. I've got an in progress one. Okay, and then the checklists. So you can, perhaps if you wanted to, you could say, okay, well, I'm going to duplicate this entire grid for each person that does this course, which is another option you could do. And that's very simple. I can either do it from within the folder, I can simply clone this grid with all the elements. And there we are in my clone now, just to show you it's there. I made a complete clone, so perhaps this is my one to complete. There we go, that's now my course plan. I can work through this. I can see the labels and I can work through. So I could go through introduction. Okay, well, I've done my research. I'm done. And you see the progress bar goes up and I can see if I'm done. And there we go. You can also set up a rule for these labels. So if you wanted them to change color when they're done, underneath the labels here in edit mode, I can set a display rule. So when all the checklist items and element done, turn it green, and you'll see it turns green. I come back out of edit mode. So perhaps now I've completed this one, done my research, done. I can close down and those start to go green, and then anyone coming in with access can come in and see the progress on here. And you also get a full progress within the folder as well. So we've got each of these denote that they've got checklists within these grids. And you can see there, Jody's halfway through his. And I can also see a full overview. There we go, Jody's done 4 of his 8 checklist items across that grid. So I hope that's given you a little insight into how quickly you can build these out and the power of this labeling system to really bring it to life. If I go back to our agenda now, we could address some questions. If you've got any for myself or Dimo, and I can see we've got a question in here. So the question is Method Grid just the structure of the course or the content inside? Well, I mean, to answer that, I mean, it could be either. I think Dimo would probably be right in saying, in your case, it's the plan itself. Would that be right?
It's the plan itself, but the next step is to populate the content. But so the answer, yes, it's both.
Yeah, so it is both. So I mean, perhaps my example actually kind of covered that a little bit. So perhaps I would have, so this original one that I made before I clone it, this could be my plan, and I would plan it out here, and this would become the working model each time. And then, of course, you can, because this can have so much content in it, this can be the content of your course, which I'm sure is your next stage, Dimo, is to populate this with images and videos and various things that they're going to look at. And then you saw I was able to just clone that one, which makes a complete copy. And then I can give that to someone here. And this is now mine, and this can have all the content in. And you saw me working through this. And you can give people different access. So you would only give you wouldn't give this person edit access, so they'd only see it like this. And then they can work through, but they'll be able to view all your content. On slow again. They'll be able to view all your content and read that and tick off the checklist items and things like that. So I hope that answered that question. I'll leave the question box there in case anyone's got any other questions before we sign off on this webinar. So thanks very much, Dimo. It's a really interesting insight. Oh, hang on. Here we've got another question. Can we save it in PDF? Would that be, so I think you're probably talking about the whole grid. Not at this, you can't. Well, I mean, technically you could, because I could print this and then go into the print layout and have it how I want. But at the moment we don't have, because Method Grid, as you can see, in fact, if I switch back to Dimo's account, I'll show you why it probably wouldn't work if you wanted to. I mean, if it was a small grid, I think it would maybe, but you can see in Dimo's case that the grid is so large, and a lot of the grids that we see being created in Method Grid are very big. It's not really been built to be printed. But having said that, you know, you could screenshot this and save it as a PDF if that's what you wanted to. If you had a smaller grid maybe that took up a screen, and of course you could try shrinking your screen down like this and try and get as much in as possible. You could certainly print the screen and put it into a PDF. But at this time we don't have an export to PDF feature, but we do have, flip back to the demo, you can export the grid as an Excel sheet. So if I come into my example one here, when I'm in my grid library, this one here, I can export the whole thing as an Excel. And when I hit that, it will download as a zip file. And in there would be this grid structure, if you can kind of imagine that in an Excel spreadsheet. And in each cell, it will have the name of the element. And then in a spreadsheet, you have the worksheets down the bottom. So, and then it would bring this content into the worksheets down the bottom. If that makes sense. So you'd have the overview would look like the grid in an Excel sheet. And then you'd have worksheet, you'd have each sheet would be one of these elements. And then if there's any documents uploaded to those, they're also in the zip file as well. So you can export it as such into Excel, and then you could manipulate it how you wanted. If you wanted to print, I would probably, if it's a small enough grid, then I would say just print the screen and you can put it into PDF or put it into anything you want. So I hope that answers your question. I've got something on the chat here. Okay, so here's another question. So is there any way to accommodate student activity in the grid? So, I mean, in Dimo's case, and in this case, we'd be looking at, they'd be reading the content. So anyone who's I'll just show you actually quickly. You can see in our demo, we have lots of different members here. So we've got 3 member types. You've got an architect, and they can control the whole of MethodGrid and do all your settings and things like that. And then you have a builder, and a builder can create grids and create the content. And then you have a user, and then a user can view the content within grids. So if I was a user in this grid, to sort of answer your question, the activity that I'd be able to do is I can read, I can download anything, I can watch any videos in here, I can mark off checklists, I can also comment in here, and I can at people. So if you're, we saw Rosie in the, so I can comment at people who are on MethodGrid, and I could say I have a question. So as a user, I can do that, and I can put that comment in there, and that comment will then be attached to this. Oh, done it twice. Will then be attached to this element, and you could certainly interact with your students in there. But if you wanted a student to actually put content into one of the grids, they would just need their access level slightly higher as a builder, and then they would be able to do that. But in most cases, we see that people just have them as users. And shortly, we'll have more granular access control levels. So you'd be able to say, okay, well, Rosie here can edit this, but Jody can't. That's coming up in the next 6 weeks or so. So hopefully that kind of answers some of those questions. If you want to just try it out, MethodGrid is completely free. So let me just go to our website here. So MethodGrid's completely free to sign up, and it's free for small teams. So you only go onto a paid plan when you go over 10 users on the system. So if you have a look and you've liked what you've seen, then feel free, just come in here, click there, and you'll be able to sign up. You just need an email address, and you'll straight away have your own MethodGrid platform to play around in. And we provide you with a load of example grids. They're quite business orientated at this moment rather than sort of academic, but provide good overviews, and you can just get started. So, you know, if you've got any more questions or you just want to have a go, then just sign up. It's completely free. I'll just check and see if there's any more questions here. I think we're there. So, Dimo, if there's anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I mean, it's been, we found it very helpful, integrating and rolling this out to the wider team. And when you start having different people aligning different courses, that's where it starts getting really, really interesting. Just on the student question, it's with small classes, you probably will work. With bigger classes, becomes more difficult to manage. But still is an option that could be explored.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage you to sign up for a free account and just give it a try, and because MethodGrid is very flexible. I mean, it's a blank slate really, so you can sort of make it do whatever you want really. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, thanks ever so much for coming, guys. If you do, we're always having new webinars that's come out of this, so we're always posting up our new webinars on our website here. So keep an eye on there. If you want to sign up, you can put your email in there and we'll email you whenever there's a new webinar coming up. So thanks for joining. Thanks very much, Dimo. It's been a pleasure having you.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Great to be here.
And goodbye, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.